Hello, I'm Caleb, and this is my BBE1201 project. I'm a PSEO high school student, so I'm living at home with my parents right now. It's just me, my mom, and my dad. We live in a 4 bedroom, 4 bathroom house in the Minneapolis suburbs that was built in 1990. As for a little bit of energy context, according to the EIA, the typical American home uses 899 kilowatt hours a month. In Minnesota, one website estimates that this drops down to about 773 kilowatt hours a month. And according to some power bills, our house uses around 800 kilowatt hours a month in the summer. And our most recent, or a recent power bill, was 498 kilowatt hours a month. We use air conditioning for cooling in the summer, and we have a natural gas furnace in the winter. And so we don't use electricity to heat the house. It's just mostly electronics and microwave lights, etc., for the electricity usage. Here's a graphic from the EIA that shows the residential house like breakdown and electricity usage. The top ones are for heating and cooling like spaces. And since we only use the air conditioner and only during the summer, I estimate that heating and refrigerators are going to be the main users of electricity in our house. These are the devices that I chose to measure. So we have a water cooler, a freezer, and those were variable devices since they use a thermostat to kind of cycle. We had a coffee machine as a cycle device because every time you hit the button, it uses like about the same amount of electricity. I measured the computer as variable since when I was measuring it, I noticed that it uses a lot different power depending on what you're doing. And even when it's sleeping, sometimes it uses different power. So I decided I would just measure that as a variable device since it would be too hard to keep track of the different states. The constant power devices were a router, like a Wi-Fi router, an air purifier, a microwave, and a Google Home smart speaker. These are the time logs that I used. We just had a little sticky note piece of paper and a pencil that was next to it, and we just record the numbers every time we turn on the light, every time we use the microwave, etc. Here are the devices with my ID next to them. And as far as calculations go, the air purifier was the one I chose to do the calculation for constant power. Our time log said we used 68 hours in the total over the 7 days. So that averages out, and I multiplied that average by the number of watts it used when it's on to get around 422 watt hours a day. With the variable power, that was the water dispenser that I chose. I averaged it over 25 hours, so it used 913 watt hours over 25 hours. So I took the average watts and multiplied that by 24 to get 0.86 kilowatt hours a day on average. For the cycles for the coffee machine, we kept track of how many rounds of coffee we made throughout the day. So normally it was 2 or 3, so we had 2.333 cycles a day when we averaged that out. And if we multiply it by 23 watt hours a cycle, we get around 54 watt hours a day. I also noticed that there was some phantom power for this coffee machine. It had a little clock that was using 1.2 watts all the time. And so that technically would have gotten counted in the cycle time as well, and like the cycles, the power for that. But I think it's minuscule, so it's probably okay to double count that. The light bulbs, we had a light that was like a floor lamp, so it had 2 bulbs, a top bulb and a bottom bulb. Added together, it's 14.8 watts. On average, the time log said we did 2.32 hours a day, and so that gets us about 34 watt hours every day. Here's my data table. I chose the template option on Canvas. It worked out really well. The high energy users that I noticed were computers and anything that did heating and cooling. The low energy users were the smart home devices like the smart speaker as well as the clocks for the coffee machine. But I was actually surprised by that phantom power for the coffee machine. It seemed a little high to be 1.2 watts, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't very much. I was also surprised by the fluctuation in the computer's power usage when it was supposedly sleeping. That kind of told me that maybe it wasn't sleeping the whole time and it was doing other stuff. Here's that breakdown again. The big chunk of that, the turquoise bluish, is that heating and cooling, and the orange chunk is the computers, and that took up a lot of what I audited. In comparison to our power bill, this is the 498 kilowatt hour power bill from a month ago. I only accounted for 18.15% of that through my audit. So I'm guessing where the other power is going is probably mostly the refrigerator and the rest of the lights around the house. I wasn't able to pull back the refrigerator to expose the power plug, otherwise I would have done it. But I bet the refrigerator uses a lot, as well as the AC. If we used it a little bit in August, that would have contributed. Most of the numbers, compared to the online numbers, were pretty much spot on. Our freezer used a lot less than the estimate online that was around 100 watts, but our freezer used around 30 watt average. I was Again, surprised about the computer's usage when it was supposedly sleeping. The coffee maker, actually, I was really surprised by this, that the phantom power was 28 watt hours, and we were using 82 watt hours a day. So that's like 25% of that just going to the phantom power. That tells me that maybe we don't need to have the coffee maker plugged in all the time. Our microwave's wattage was actually measured to be 1500 instead of 1150, which was kind of surprising. Our microwave was higher power than I thought it was, and the rest of the numbers were pretty much on par. As far as saving energy, I could save 5% of my total electric bill by not using the heating and cooling functions of that water dispenser. That's 25 kilowatt hours total, as well as 2.5% by not using the air purifier at night. Here are my references.